Meeting of the City Council's Public Safety Committee meeting. I'm the chair, Gina Gregory. The other committee members are Councilman Woods and Councilman Carroll. All of our other council members are here, Reynolds, Penn, President Small, and Daves. We are here today to talk about a proposed amendment to the city's noise ordinance. So I'm going to start with Councilman Penn because he is the council member who has brought the amendment, and we'll just go from there. Corey.
Well, thank you, Vice President. One of the reasons why we brought this amendment, I received a lot of calls, particularly in my district, and of course we have heard issues throughout the city with particular noise issues throughout our residential area. And the concern was only to make sure that our residential areas between the days of Sunday through Thursday, just bringing that hour down because of course, we have a lot of families. We declare that our city of Mobile is a family city. And so we know people are preparing for work, school, and other activities in the morning time. And they wanted to make sure that at least about 9 o'clock we can start the wind down. So the only change was bringing that time down between Sundays and Thursdays. Also, I think we didn't have and Michael, Mr. Linder, you could kind of explain that. I don't think it was official where people could apply for the noise waiver in the ordinance. We kind of been allowing it. So it's kind of clearing up some of the language as well. So can you explain this particular ordinance?
Thank you, Councilman Penn. Yeah, first off, the procedures for doing noise waivers just were not codified anywhere in the code or city procedures. So that's one intent of the amendment, is just to lay out in black and white what the procedures are, that you have to apply to the clerk's office for them by 2 o'clock on the Thursday before a council meeting. You want them considered at, and so on. We wanted to make sure that it explicitly gave the council the discretion to extend the hours beyond 9 or 10 p.m., whichever is applicable, for a noise waiver in the council's discretion. But otherwise, yeah, the bulk of the changes, besides adding the procedures and clarifying that, is just changing the time from 10 p.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and leaving it at 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday.
Corey, anything else?
And then from there, we also had some discussions on making some amendments, and we're definitely open to doing that today. But one of my concerns is making sure that when we do have certain places that's located in residential areas, how would it look if we were to send some notifications to that particular community so they know that that is coming up, that they're not finding out afterwards. And if it's possible, and do we have anything like that currently in any of our other ordinance? And so that's something that I want to look into today as well. And then making sure that some of because of the makeup of the downtown area, is putting some language in place for the entertainment district, as well as certain businesses that's located in close to residential areas, that they're still protected in what they already have been doing right now. So I have, Madam Vice President.
Okay. So nothing specific on the two other possibles? No. Okay. Is everybody clear on what the first two are about? Just changing the level to 9 o'clock Sunday through Thursday, and then also codifying the process to get a waiver, correct? Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay. So the next two items would be other possible amendments. When you say notification of neighborhoods, do you mean like around a venue, for instance? So the neighborhoods that would be adjacent to a venue, say Bragg Mitchell, they have a lot of weddings and things like that. So you're talking about surrounding area of Bragg Mitchell to notify the neighbors that something's coming up.
Yes, so they can be prepared. And maybe, from the standpoint of the Bragg Mitchell mansion is a little different compared to certain other residential areas, because homes are so far away from that particular mansion. I don't know if we can put a radius on how far that we should send those notifications out. But that could be in discussions as well.
Any other, because I've got the grounds that make a lot of noise. People from far away hear some of those concerts, but there are plenty of other venues around where if there is like a concert outside, the noise can carry. And of course, depending on the weather, sound can carry even further. So any other discussion?
I do have one question, I guess. So like as written at the moment, says due into the clerk's office by 2 p.m. on the Thursday prior to the city council meeting at which the waiver is to be considered.
Josh, I don't think your microphone's on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or-
It's probably too far away. Any application for the waiver of these ordinances or noise ordinance shall be due to the city's clerk's office by 2 p.m. on the Thursday prior to the city council meeting in which the waiver is to be considered. I'm just kind of thinking of notifications, especially when it kind of comes to zoning. That kind of sticks in my mind of how that's notified. For zoning changes and things, signs placed, people are notified. Immediately contingent upon or touching the land in the certain area. I just don't know how it's written here. It just kind of seems there. I don't know how you would. I don't know how you would notify and still be timely. Kind of with being able to submit it by 2 p.m. on Thursday prior to the council meeting is to be considered. So that I think that's just something that zoning, it's a process. So I don't know. That's just one concern I see. You would probably, I don't know. That's a good question. So.
Let's see. I think I saw William hit the microphone first.
Oh, he kind of halfway answered that. If there's going to be notification to people within a certain radius, then the time of application has to change to meet the notification period coming from the city. So if there was somebody that applied for a noise ordinance waiver a week ahead of time, there's no way to get proper notification out. So you're going to start having people who incidentally plan a birthday party, planning 3-4 months ahead of time for a waiver of the noise ordinance, which is in a lot of cases, kind of hard to do based on, circumstances for simple activities like that. So it's going to create a whole new layer of government and operations that we've never had to do before for an application for a waiver of noise ordinance. So it's adding quite a bit to do notifications. Now, notification by our text message system or something like that would be totally different, or by email in our constant contacts would be different, or by putting it on the website would be different too, but not everybody looks at our website.
Joel?
Yeah, I've given this matter a good deal of thought, and I've actually gone back and forth on it. But where I am now is I'm just not sure we need to change the ordinance at all from its current form. I think if we get, we have these requests for waivers of the noise ordinance on the agenda almost every week, multiples of them. And so I've been here 10 years and we've approved hundreds, if not thousands of them in that period of time. And we've had very few complaints. So I don't think you're ever going to get to the place where it's perfect. There's very little that's perfect in this world. And I don't think we're ever going to get to the place where it's perfect. I think the system that we have in place now has worked 99% of the time. And I think we ought to just stick with what we got.
Okay. Anybody else? CJ?
I was just listening to Councilman Joel Daves, and I kind of do agree. And I do know, I think when I first got on the council, we went up to 11 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken. Then we pushed it back to 10. Was it? So I don't know why 11 o'clock is ringing in my mind, but I do know if a council member has a concern as far as in just cutting off earlier or making an adjustment, they do have that right, to do, even if it's 9 o'clock, in a particular district. And I think that every council person understand their particular district. And I know there are some concerns among the council, but, I mean, I'm fine each, which way, but, but again, but if you want to cut it off early, you have every right to do that.
Okay, Ben?
It would seem that if we reduced the time down to 9 o'clock, that would increase the amount of waiver requests we would see. So, I don't know that it's necessary that the government should be, managing, noise at quite that level, or, all those requests must come to us. I mean, we already do consider quite a bit of waivers at this point, and I think, I wouldn't increase the amount of waiver requests we see.
Yeah, you're talking about, you wouldn't change from 9 o'clock to, from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Yeah, even though it's more restrictive, I think all that's going to do is sort of introduce additional waiver requests, to the city council. And, maybe we shouldn't be waiving the noise ordinance on so many occasions. It's okay for us to say, no, we're not waiving the noise ordinance. The noise ordinance speaks for itself and it stands on its own. So I don't know that I would be in favor of changing it. I think it's, as Joel has said, it's sort of, it works the way it is, but everybody should be very thoughtful when it comes to considering waiving any law whatsoever, not just a noise ordinance, but any law whatsoever. We should be very considerate of that.
Go ahead.
The other thing I haven't seen in 10 years on the council is I don't recall any instance where the council voted against the wishes of the council person in which the request was being made.
At least on one of these. Yeah. You got to be specific on what the item is.
On waivers of the noise ordinance.
Correct.
Right. On waivers of the noise ordinance. I can't recall any instance where the council has failed to act as the council person for the district wished. And it's the council person of the district who knows the district best, who knows the residents best, who knows the surrounding residences best. And, so I just don't think, I don't really see a reason to change what we got.
But
Ben?
Madam
Ben
Chairman,
Corey?
I wanted to get to the purpose of this a little bit more, Mr. Penn. So moving it from 10 to 9, the thought was it would resolve what issue? If you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Reynolds, for sharing, and I definitely respect all my colleagues. Y'all make some valid points. I'm only speaking to serving my particular district, and then the reason why is because between Sunday and Thursdays, people are getting prepared for work, they're getting prepared for school, and so for those times, I receive phone calls regarding this matter that they will like for, in my particular district, I can't speak for the phone calls that everybody else receives, that they would like for those times. They understand on weekends and stuff like that, but getting ready for work, 9 o'clock would be a great cutoff time, which I support and I still support. One of the things too, we mentioned about not changing the ordinance. Technically right now, we don't even have legal right to extend the ordinance to a certain time. So by not even changing, we're saying as a government, we want to follow guidelines, but that's not even a part of the ordinance right now to even give that ability to do it. Is that a part of the ordinance, Mr. Linder? That right now, do we have the right to, in the ordinance, extend time? We're voting to allow people to go past 10 p.m. Is that a part of the ordinance currently?
I mean, the ordinance as currently stated just says in residential neighborhoods, the noise levels can't exceed a certain a level after 10 p.m. Nothing else is codified in terms of the procedure or the standards or what the council's discretion is. My view would be, since nothing in there says the council can't extend it past 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or whatever we're talking about, I believe the council can,
Mhm.
at least.
What we've been doing.
And
Yeah.
indeed, if the council passed an ordinance saying the council can't extend it past that time, then at least until a future council were to pass an ordinance amending that, the council wouldn't be able to do it. But right now, as far as the codification goes, we could leave it that way if you like. We can. It's acceptable to proceed on custom in certain ways, and that's essentially what we'd be doing.
And to Mr. Penn's point, I think maybe the question is not necessarily do we have the ability to waive, but how does the citizen seek approval for the waiver? I think that might be the better.
Yeah. So, just to me, putting everything in writing so people have knowledge and understanding what the ordinance is saying and what the procedure and process of doing it. Of course, like I said, I'm speaking for my residents, my constituents, and of course I'm gonna vote according to that. But I respect everybody's wishes and concerns.
Okay. One of the things on codifying this, which I think we need to do, is when a neighbor calls the police because the noise is too loud in the neighborhood, if the police show up and they ask whoever has got the loud music going if they have a waiver of the noise ordinance, and the neighbor says no, well, then the police will say, well, you were violating the ordinance, you got to cease. But if they have a waiver, then the police say, well, they've got a waiver, they're good to go. So there needs to be a way to make sure that we have legs to stand on, and the police have some legs to stand on in order to enforce what it is we want them to do. So that part of it, I think, is important to do. Now, whether we lower it to 9 o'clock, I mean, inside a residential neighborhood, if somebody comes to me and they want to waive the noise ordinance past 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night in a residential neighborhood on like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening, I'm very hesitant to do that. They can go to a certain time, and I think that's what your point is they can already go to 10 o'clock, at a certain level. But if they want to go above that level, then they would have to get the waiver on a weeknight.
Or not get the waiver.
Or not give a waiver. And I think to Joel's point too is we know the residents in these neighborhoods, and unless you're having a big street party in the middle of the week and everybody's invited, a lot of those folks are not going to be real happy if there's a loud party going on. But so what do y'all want to do? Do we want to move forward on an amendment to codify the process at least?
I mean, I can count here.
You can count heads like everybody else, right? Corey?
But I'm not removing this. I respect every colleague, and whatever decision you make, you vote up and down. I see the numbers, but of course I'm fine with it. And this is something that I don't see, just my personal opinion, I don't see the difference from Sunday through Thursday, bringing it down to 9 p.m. and then making the correct verbiage inside the ordinance. But again, just like you stated, and which, as you see on my time on the council, I respect every person desire and wish in their particular district. So the needs, the desires of your constituents. I don't know that, but for me and my constituents, this is what they would like to see. And so if no one want to create any changes, we'll just move forward.
Ben?
Also with reducing the time from 10 to 9, that also increases the cadence of response for police officers. So I think it may be important to hear from Public Safety Director Lasky to see what sort of impact, an hour may have on, say, staffing and other issues that may exist.
I really can't tell you how many calls we have for noise, and how many would be between the 9 and 10. I know that there's a fair amount of disturbance calls. We're going to get them probably regardless if it's 10 or 9, and they'll be handled in priority order. It just more given a chance to enforce, if it's 10 to 9, I don't think we really have a dog in this fight between 10 and 9, Monday through Thursday.
Okay. Another question would be is what impact does waiving the noise ordinance have on the police department? So when we're waiving.
Again, with waiving the noise ordinance, your neighbors aren't going to probably know that you even got a noise ordinance waiver. So the calls are still going to come in, and we're still going to probably respond in most cases. And then they're going to say, we got a noise ordinance waiver, and then that's it. That's going to be it. And they'll probably run back through after the time is over.
So that would shift the burden. So basically, police department goes out and responds and says, yeah, your city council person or your legislative arm of your government, they waived this law pertaining to this problem you're having, so call them.
And then that's
That is an implication of these sort of waivers of law.
right. And that, this young lady that came down and spoke to us the other day lived on Sheringham Drive, and I told you all what had happened the last time they had the party. And I indicated that I had gotten calls all night long about it. And that's what you pointed out is exactly what happened. The police went out, said they had a waiver of the noise ordinance, and then the neighbors started calling the councilman, which was their right, and they should have done that.
That's exactly. But it does, again, point to, the impact of the waiver, that it is careful consideration must be given to these sort of waivers that it seems like we've seen an uptick in requests for whatever reason. I don't know who's directing folks to get the waivers. But we're approving them at a pretty high clip now. And, is that an acceptable, level of governance? And should we be saying no, adhere to the law more often than what we actually are?
I don't think it's a one size fits all type thing. I think every single one of these, not every single one, but a lot of them are different. There are different nuances to each one. And I go back to, it's the privilege and responsibility of the individual council person to have a strong say in whether these are approved or denied. And that council person bears the responsibility for what happens afterwards.
Corey?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. One of the things Councilman Reynolds stated that he believes that if this particular ordinance go in place, that it will make more opportunity for more people coming down for noise waivers. But when we look at the time differences, Sunday through Thursday, from what I'm hearing, what my colleagues stated here today, that they won't want any type of event taking place after this time for a noise waiver between those times in the residential area. So for me, I didn't see it as that we're going to start receiving more. And if that was to come in place, then it would still be turned down anyway. So, from Sunday through Thursday, to focus on saying we just moving it to an hour on the days that people are getting ready for school and work. I didn't see that it would be a challenge, because we want to approve these type of noise waivers. Majority of the time, this is, a special. I mean, I guess having a birthday party on a weekday type of event. I mean, I can understand maybe a Sunday, but most people between Monday and Thursdays are not having these grand parties. So, but this also just put something in place to protect our residential area and our neighbors. So I just want to kind of respond back to that.
Madam Chairman.
CJ, first thing, William.
Director Lasser, if I can ask you a question. From your standpoint, might missed this earlier, but does the city of this size, do we receive a lot of complaints about, accelerated noise, especially, period, And if so, what part of town is more east side or west side, if that's so?
I couldn't tell you whether, and again, I think it's more seasonal than anything else, whether we get a lot of complaints or not. You tend to, the actual complaints tend to come from the more middle class and upper class neighborhoods, as opposed to lower income neighborhoods. If you want me, I go back and actually get you the exact statistics, but I don't have those on the top of my head.
I think that would be considered good information, especially before, we consider passing this. Because if it's not that many complaints, but if there are a lot of complaints, there's something that we should be looking into.
I'll put something together by precinct and by days of the week for you and get it back to you as soon as I can. Time.
And the time, yeah. Because I can remember us going through this years ago, William, with trying to figure out the decibels and the time periods and all that, because we're really lenient as it is going until 6 or 7 o'clock. And then even then we're pretty lenient. And if you have to go louder than what we allow, that is some kind of loud party going on.
Yeah.
And I think that actually kind of speaks to what Corey's trying to get at. I mean, you can go pretty loud up until a good 9 or 10 o'clock as it is, but it's pretty loud after dark, but not like it is during the daytime. Because during the daytime, it has been described to me as like you can put a blender in front of your face, and that's the decibel level that we allow in the city Mobile during the daytime hours. Corey.
Yeah,
All
my
right, so
bad.
you were first. Go
My
ahead,
bad.
William.
Well, you just hit it. I was about to just mention how we got here years ago. The noise ordinance is about sound and decibels, not about time. So it doesn't matter if it's 7 a.m. in the morning, 5 p.m. in the afternoon, or 10 o'clock at night. Your decibel level should be at a certain decibel. I think it's 85, 65, 85, and
Like
then
85 during
yeah,
daytime.
85 during the daytime, and it tempers, and then 85. So, the cutoff time was at 10 o'clock always. I can't remember a time it was at 11, but it was always at 10. That was the cutoff, and that was for the noise. The party could continue as long as the decibels were under 85 decibels. I can't remember if it was at the property line or at the door. So 85 decibels at the property line. So the party could continue whether it was 85 decibels at the property line, and then people around it, as long as it was 85 decibels at the property line, they were not breaking the noise ordinance. They need a waiver for the noise ordinance if it's going to be above 85 decibels at any time. The other contingent in that is a council member could say that anytime during that period that they could control the time in which it was going to cut off. If it was in a certain area. Jen does it all the time. If it's somewhere close to Forest Hill, somewhere else, she won't let it go past 9 o'clock. She'll say it needs to cut off at 8 or 9. That is up to that council member, and that council member has that right to do so. If someone chooses to have a party and doesn't have a waiver of noise ordinance, and a police officer or an enforcement officer comes out and says stop it, then they have to stop immediately because they don't have a noise ordinance to stand on. And that's a simple lookup by the police department to see if they have it or not. So if they don't have it, then they cut off immediately. If they do have it, then they have the right to go to the full length of time that the council person specified and was approved, whether it be 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock. The question arises is if the council wants to extend the time past the 10 o'clock deadline. That's where the questions have been arising. Do we allow it to go past 10 o'clock? When we waiver it past 10 o'clock in certain areas at certain times, that's when I think some people may have an arise to that. And again, that is something that has to be worked out, because right now we're running into instances where people are requesting to go past that 10 o'clock barrier. And we have some places in our entertainment district inside the Henry and Hank Aaron Loop and about it right now where heavy entertainment areas, palaces, entertainment venues, and clubs are starting to encroach upon small neighborhoods that are creating these pockets that are different from what they used to be in the past. So the question is do we allow it or waive it past 10 o'clock? That's the real question. And then and do we allow it to remain as it is, which I think right now we have a good ordinance. I don't think it needs to be changed. And then, Corey, I've already told you this. The thing is that are we enforcing what we have is the question. And the other thing is that council members have the ability to police their own districts when the requests for waivers come in. You've seen me do it downtown in the area of the cathedral on Sundays. The Archbishop and the Vice Vicar said, we're having so much noise with certain groups doing certain events on Sundays in front of the cathedral, we can't have a mass. So y'all seen me start not allowing a waiver between those hours from start to finish in those hours in front of the cathedral. And anytime there's a request to the council, a council member has the authority and ability to circumvent those times if necessary. Somebody requests a waiver of noise ordinance and it's during the week and it's going to go past 9 o'clock and you think it's appropriate, then let's cut it off at that time. If it's appropriate and it goes to 10, then allow it. That's how the ordinance we should have been working the ordinance from start to finish and from what we're doing right now. And sometimes we just blankly look at it and say, okay, that's what they asked for, then let them have it. But we got to start looking at the areas again and enforcing the areas in which the people are applying for. Now, to the second issue I heard about notification. I do think it's unfair to certain neighbors who have to constantly check city council agenda and venues to see whether or not there's going to be noise in their neighborhood or noise right next door to them. We may have to come up with some type of method to notify the surrounding people that there's going to be a little bit of noise. That helps cut down on our response so that when people are notified, they already know that this is going to be happening between this time and that time.
Just to follow up on what William said, going back and trying to remind myself about this noise ordinance, we got into it talking about decibels and how far, 85 decibels can be heard. And that's really how it all got started. Not so much on the time, but on the actual loudness and where you have to be standing. And it started with dumpsters and it went on to dog barking. And then it was, audible, like the electronic, types of sound. So I'm with William on most of this because I think we just have to be careful within the neighborhood of the time, and each council member can probably regulate like we're doing now on when it's appropriate, when it's not. I do still think, however, that if we are going to allow waivers, we need to codify it one way or the other. Notification, yeah, I think it's important to figure out a way to notify, and how best to do it, I'm not sure. I mean, the best way I know how that's the easiest is as soon as we know something's going to be going on, put a sign up, talking about event this weekend, and maybe people will figure it out that there's going to be, some sort of loud noise going on. I'm not sure, Michael. Yeah.
Just purely from an administrative standpoint, the first thing I would say is that, you've all seen the, some of the issues we've had with notifications under the zoning ordinance and things. I mean, that's fairly burdensome, and I think it would be best to avoid anything. Put as much of the burden as possible, preferably all of it, on the applicant to do these things. The first thing I would say is that, for example, if we're going to require notice, I think it would be best to have it say only be in cases where the applicant really is asking for it to be later than the ordinance provides. In other words, and so there would be that would almost necessitate, as the codification, as we've got it in the amendment stands, it's just they have to have the waiver in by, same as when the agenda closes, 2 p.m. Thursday. So if they're asking for a waiver that will require notification, it'll have to be, I would say, at least another week or two in advance of that, if not longer. And for example, I'm just spitballing here, just to have the applicant be required to put a conspicuous sign up on the property saying noise waiver applied for, check city website, et cetera. Something that's fairly easy to execute, but doesn't put a burden on the city or on the clerk's office.
Yeah, something like that would be, the sign would probably be easier for venues. If it's something within a neighborhood, don't y'all think that maybe the applicant should be a good neighbor and let the neighbors know that this is coming and cars are probably going to be parked in front of your house, that sort of a thing? If anybody's having a street party, they normally do that anyway.
Again, I think this is a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah, you may be right.
And you're going to levy all of these requirements on the applicant, most of whom are people who want to have a party in their backyard.
Yeah.
And now you're going to make them put signs in the front yard and who's going to police to make sure the signs were put up. And the people that come down to complain about it will say, well, they never put this, they didn't tell me, they didn't put the sign up. All the stuff we have with zoning right now with the demolition of the buildings.
Right.
We've been doing this for years. We handle hundreds a year, if not thousands. We have a very small percentage where it turns out bad. Let's just leave it alone.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair. Yeah, I agree with Councilman Days. And then, also we can ask the city clerk office if they can just call around to other cities and see, do they do anything like that? Again, I'm very interested to know from Director Lasky, how many calls are we actually getting? Because we ain't getting but,
Yeah.
20 calls a year throughout the whole city. I mean, this is irrelevant, But if we get a large amount, I mean, I think the best thing to do is, call around, have the city clerk office to call around to other cities and see exactly if they're doing anything, and then we won't have to reinvent the wheel.
Well, I hope y'all can do this before next week, because I've got one that's been calling me twice a week for the last month. And
Yeah.
I've got to get it worked out, so.
Corey?
Thank you, Madam Vice President. And again, like I said, this is not trying to convince the council, but I just kind of, since some statements has been made, Councilman Carroll, this particular ordinance wasn't even dealing with the noise waiver. It was focused on at 9. So it's a discussion, and I commend. It was more focused on from Sunday through Thursday from 9 p.m. change from 10 p.m. So I think looking at the ordinance, it wasn't a blanket. It was, and each person you stated yourself that the decimal level that right now we have it is pretty loud. So if it's pretty loud on Sunday through Thursday at 9 p.m. it's loud just because it's loud. So that was the reason, because even at that height of volume sound, it's still loud. So if it's loud during those times, that's the reason for the change. But I just want to make that statement. Also, I think it's a wise idea for to look at the data and numbers. But the truth of the matter is, we don't have to. I mean, the vote again. You can tell the votes are here. But the reason why I want to bring the data situation come up is that we had the shot spotter, and when we had shot spotter in place, we found out that a lot of gunshots were taking places in neighborhoods. And when they went and did a report, people wasn't reporting the gunshots. So you had all these shots taking place, and people weren't calling and saying that they heard or and all these numbers. The reason why I'm bringing that statement up is in particular communities, people have become accustomed to loud noise and sounds, and sometimes they just don't make the phone calls. So even if we call and say that, that's not a true accurate number, because we have proof in other areas where if you hear a gunshot, most people call it. But based on the numbers, people weren't even calling when they heard the gunshot. So a lot of times people are dealing with things and they're not reporting the issues. But again, I think we kind of, I do one thing I agree with Joel about, if I think we making this more than what it is. If you're against that, go vote it down. The change was the 9 p.m. That's it, guys. It wasn't no noise waiver. It wasn't me policing and our district. We all do a great job. I have to turn down the noise waiver. This is not even dealing with noise waivers, which we don't even have nothing on the books to say what's the process. So I believe having the discussion was great. I stand by what I put in place because I think it will help our residential community, but I respect everybody else's wishes since you know your particular district. But with the numbers of the data, I don't think it's going to be accurate. So to me, holding this over to wait for that, I don't think we should do it. We already it's first read next week vote. Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Josh?
This will be my last and I'll be quiet. So kind of thinking through, and maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I don't know where honestly don't know where I'm at. I really do I like the codification of how you apply for a noise variance. I also would like to point out that this is only applicable per the definitions above this that we're trying to look at modifying is a residential should have the same meaning in the zoning ordinance of the city, including single-family residential R1, two-family R2, multifamily district R3, and residential business districts RB, or is established by future zoning ordinance. That really, this is dealing, and I'm just kind of speaking out loud here, this is dealing with purely residential districts and whatever zoning calls a residential district, whether that's 2 R1s adjoining, 3 R1s adjoining, and I guess we would have to talk to zoning to get a definition of what they classify a district as. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3? So really, this is just dealing straight with residential. So nothing downtown would be applicable in this. Going to the other side of the house, as far as the codification, right now we're looking just to codify anything R, whatever an R district is. I mean, I think knowing I love and I'm actually for 9 o'clock, by the way, but that's neither here nor there. That's just coming from a densely populated District 6 where, 2 houses down, if the kid's got his vehicle speaker's too loud, I mean, I can hear it in my house. So I understand that. But I do hear everybody else. But I do want to kind of just point out that this codification is just for residential areas and not really, I don't think we're solving the bigger picture of trying to establish how you get a noise variance. Downtown wouldn't be, I mean, this wouldn't apply to downtown because it's not an R1, R2, R3, or RB. So that's just the point I want to point out. But that's neither here
okay.
nor there. So.
Before we go too much further, Carol, can you,
Well,
yeah,
I was just about to do
can you
that.
do it at the mic so we can all
It
hear
does
you?
apply.
It's not R1 or
Doesn't matter.
I just wanted to correct something, the DDD code that was adopted considers the entirety of the Henry Aaron Loop as a residential district as it pertains to the noise ordinance. Anywhere downtown where residential is allowed by right, which is the entirety of everything in the loop, is applicable to the noise ordinance.
But again, you would have to change that ordinance that was passed. So that's, I mean, that ordinance would need to be changed to update that.
Well, not necessarily. Let me remind the council, what was the year 2009, Carol? An individual downtown dealing with vibratory noise. His name was Irvin Grotsky. The reason why the entertainment district was broken and doesn't go all the way through to Washington Avenue is simply because of the noise ordinance and a guy named Irvin Grotsky. At that time, there was no DDD, but just the noise ordinance that was overlaid into the entire downtown area anywhere that was residence. So it's not the R1. The key word is residence. And someone living there that's in a home. So that is why it's like that. So, I mean, this is experience talking to you now. When we put it together, the other thing is y'all don't realize we had to walk around with decibel meters and everything else to try to figure this out. This wasn't an easy ordinance to come to when it came to noise and sound and amplified noise and vibratory noise. So I think in my mind, I don't think we should change it. I think we have a good ordinance in place. I think it's been working. I just think that we as council members need to police the ordinance a little bit better.
Okay, yeah. Back when we started this, police officers had to take decibel readers. They were supposed to have those meters in the cars with them so that they could measure if they were out on the street, can I hear the dog barking or can I hear the music from a certain, so many feet. But so if I'm hearing everybody right, other than Mr. Penn, we need to just go ahead and it'll be on the agenda next week, vote it up or down. But basically, I think everybody wants to just leave it alone and continue the custom that we have if we're going to provide a waiver. Each person makes up their own mind for their district and we approve it. And then Lana, y'all continue to do the same. Am I hearing everybody right? Or is there some sort of, well, I'm just saying, but is there any interest in trying to codify the process for the waivers?
I'm still interested to know if other cities doing anything to notify the neighbors.
Okay.
And as I hear some council members might be interested to know that,
Okay,
if there's something out there.
all right, well,
And that's just regular information.
do we want to lay this over again and wait for some more information and y'all know?
I think we should get that in a reasonable time. Shouldn't take that long.
Okay. Ben?
Also with Director Lasky.
Yeah, I think we can vote Tuesday. I think there are all a bunch of valid points. I think we need to give this some more thought before we proceed with, any significant modifications. And we've heard some valid points from downtown. Personally, and I think the folks that I represent would have no objection to 9 o'clock, but it sounds like it conflicts, with Councilman Carroll's area. Creating waivers or a process for a waiver. I mean, I don't really like that. I think it should only be used in sort of extreme circumstances. I mean, why can't we create waivers for all the laws? We're going to codify a process for that. We got coyotes in our neighborhood. Can we waive the discharging of a firearm, to shoot a nuisance animal? I mean, that would rise to an extreme level. So I just think that power should only be reserved for the most important sort of unique situations. And I don't think it's worthwhile to put it into a law.
Yeah.
Coyotes.
So y'all
Deny every one of us for all day long. Deny what? Yeah, that's exactly right. But I think instead of codifying a process and sort of rolling out the red carpet and telling everybody, if you're having a party or you're having some significant event, you don't have to abide by the law. I think that's, sort of extreme. And
Well,
we
I think
shouldn't
the
be doing
idea
it.
is if you know that your amplified sound is going to be higher than 85 decibels after 10 o'clock, then the police are going to show up on your doorstep. And if you want that,
As they should.
yes, but
that-
but if you want to go longer than 10 o'clock, then you've got to follow some sort of process. And right now, like Michael said, it's just been a custom.
I know, but we haven't had.
Oh,
I haven't had anyone complain about the custom.
I
Well,
didn't say
that's not true.
well,
I've got some in District 2. And let's be
Yeah.
real here. Right now,
Yeah.
the elephant in the room that we have to address now
And the elephant is in the room.
It's gonna be this IM thing and their ball on
Right.
Contas Street
Right.
in Mardi Gras
Yeah.
up against the residential neighborhood.
Okay.
How are we gonna resolve that? And I'll meet with them next week. So until then, let's keep an open mind and see how we're gonna find out how we're gonna keep their decibels at 85 decibels up until their property line beyond 10 o'clock. Or does it cut off period at 10 o'clock?
Madam Chairwoman, if Councilman Penn offered this ordinance without it just went from 10 to 9, District 4, I think, would have no objection. But that seems to conflict with.
What it does is that there are independent businesses within District 2 that are in the heart of neighborhoods. You got Callahan's,
That's
you
true.
have the ones downtown, you have different clubs out on the periphery of District 2. What you're going to do is you're going to shut them down from doing their business and how they normally do it. And they are they're very respectful to the time. They normally shut the music down at 10. You can't hear it outside the bar, but they may still keep it going till 11 o'clock at night. And you got, during the week, you have other places downtown in a residential neighborhood that are doing the same thing. So if you change that time, you're going to cripple a lot of the business in District 2.
Madam Vice President, I don't mind anybody voting this down. I just want to make sure the public understand the truth, okay? I don't think we utilize our attorney like we should. We become the legal experts in matters. So I'm gonna ask our attorney, could it be any amendment, anything to protect businesses? And then from the ordinance standpoint, does it hurt these businesses which Councilman Carroll's stating about? You have to look at it. So, but it's not a final that is nothing that we can do to protect, because of course this ordinance wasn't against business owners. It was dealing with residential. I believe that it could be an amendment put in place to do that, which if the colleagues don't want it, I'm fine. That's their vote. But I just don't want the public to think that this ordinance was designed to hurt business owners. It was there to protect the residential. And if we could put an amendment in place to support those businesses that are in place, if this was going to affect them, I was open to that. And if you want to vote that down, that's still fine. I'm just saying, let's not say that this the reason why I'm voting it down, because there's nothing in place to protect. That's my only statement.
I can understand your point, but still yet, I would hate to have a district with polka dot amendments throughout the district where we just have them in spot places and spot individual locations. That tends to hurt the process more than help it. Then it only grandfathers in existing places of business where new places of business may be accepted amongst the neighbors to be able to do that. So again, it's an unintended consequence that's being created by what we're doing now. I think again that we have a really good ordinance in place. I think that we need to do a better job of policing it when people come to us and request for waivers of noise ordinance.
I believe that's apple and oranges. We already got layovers throughout our city, in which it, particularly in your district, that you have requested for different things to look that don't look like that in District 1. We do have layovers, overlays. So we have, and these are things that you have suggested. So to say that if we create these polka dots, we already got polka dots throughout the city of Mobile. That looks totally different. So my thing is, if you're against it, be against it, but be against it on matters that is correct. Even with Councilman,
Madam Chair.
now I'm still talking. Lord,
Madam
Jesus.
Chairman, I want him to know I'm against it.
Okay,
Still has-
all right, thank you. I already knew you was against it. But what Councilman Reynolds stated with the coyotes, these are totally different. Are y'all shooting? You get a waiver, you get waivers to shoot coyotes? Okay, so the reason why I'm saying is let's not make these matters different from what we were speaking about. Let's deal with the ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, unless somebody has something that's really pertinent, Councilman.
Can I add
Woods?
one more thing on the list since we're making a
Already
list?
said a while back.
I know. We're making a list of stuff. Can we get clarification on what 9 is? Whether that be through zoning, it says, and having the mean zoning ordinance, I read it, what a district is. Is that 1 R1 together? Is that 3 R2s together? Yeah, I'll just give you that. See. Because it says to revert back to zoning, so that's it for me, I promise.
All right. Anybody else before we adjourn? All right.
Vice President for leading the charge.
All right. Meeting's adjourned.
Should I lose this by the end of the week?
I think you're right. It says.
That's what you guys need. That's what you